What's going on, everybody? This is Ty, the Bourbon Guy, and this is Bourbon Talk. And I am here with Paul Hletko from Few Spirits. How's it
Hey,
going, Paul?
everybody.
How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Had a little technical difficulties here. I apologize. Entirely my fault.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
We're getting better, though. We're working on it.
Yeah, so it looks like you're still there, huh? I see the barrels behind you.
Yeah, oh, yeah. We got
Putting in some. Yeah. I gotta get up there, man. That's I actually just had a friend that was right around that area, and I was telling him he scheduled out all his weekend, but I was telling him that you guys are up there near Chicago and check you guys out.
Yeah, tell them we got our big 10th anniversary party coming up a week from Friday. So hopefully your buddy can come out. We got a couple of live and cocktails. We're going to be throwing down. It should be a really fun time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I actually, I told you a little bit earlier, but I've got the American whiskey. This has been one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So far. So, but yeah, so for those that may not be as familiar, so I was actually, and Paul, you know this, I was on Instagram, still am on Instagram, but we did an IG live a little bit over a year ago, or I guess around a year ago.
Yep.
Which when I actually looked at the date, I was kind of surprised because I guess it doesn't feel like a year, but
it's still, as far as I can tell, it's still basically like May 2020. So I'm not going to judge anybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like time just kind of, I don't know, has changed in the past year or two, but
for sure.
So yeah, so last time you were on, you talked a little bit about, Few Spirits, and I know we might have some new viewers, but for the most part, a lot of people watching this have watched the IG live. But for those that may not have been around, why don't you give us maybe just a quick snapshot of what Few Spirits is?
Sure. Basically at our core, Few Spirits, we're a grain to glass whiskey distillery. We make all of our whiskey ourselves, from grain all the way to glass. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So this is something we've been doing for well over a decade. Obviously, whiskey has to age, so we're distilling longer than 10 years. But I always say that until you sell something, it's a hobby, not a business. So we measure our birthday based on sales days rather than distilling days. So we've been around this whiskey for. We can sort of see. We're sitting on about 9,000 barrels at this point. And continuing to grow. We got our start, making, bourbon. We got to start making rye, and those continue to be our primary sellers. But we also are a distillery that has a pretty firm conviction in innovation and creating new things, ranging from products like the American whiskey that you just showed off to our cold cut bourbon, which is our bourbon whiskey cut with cold coffee, to our Immortal Rye, which is our rye whiskey cut with 8 Immortals tea, continuing on. So the innovation is something that we're really very, very proud of, and it really strikes to the core of who and what Few Spirits is, and kind of what we're all about. That's
and
it's a dirty picture.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, man. There's actually a few comments that came up here, so they were actually referring to the last stream, the last IG live that we did. So seems like people enjoyed it. I don't know. That one didn't show.
Pop it in like with a little Reddit-looking symbol thing.
Right. Yeah. They were trying to say that they love you, but yeah. So
I can't read it. I'm on my phone, and the software.
Oh yeah, I'll read it to you out. Yeah. So this Trash Crew FC says, "I remember the Few IG live you guys did." And then a few other comments were talking about how great it was, and a few others talking about how that's they love Few whiskey. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot's probably changed since I talked to you last. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it's been a
how?
year, right? And so,
Yeah.
we're at the moment when we talked last time, we were really kind of talking a lot about the Immortal, if I recall correctly, because we released that about a year ago, and now kind of what we're talking about is our 10th anniversary, because I think that's a big deal. I know obviously everybody listening to this is a bourbon fan, and you probably recognize that craft bourbon is a relatively new thing in the marketplace, and the fact that we're a craft bourbon distillery 10 years old is a big deal. When we started, there really wasn't such a thing as craft whiskey. I remember going in and talking to people and say like, well, it's, we're craft spirits. They'd be like, what's a craft spirit? Is that like craft beer? Do you have like an IPA?
Right.
I'm like, no, we don't have IPAs. We make whiskey. Oh, like lager? No, we're not like a lager. We're a whiskey. And you just go in and everybody be like,
Right.
very angry, lots of stern people. Like, I don't know what craft whiskey is. And now 10 years later, which is both a really long time and a short time, depending on how you want to look at it.
Right.
Everybody has an opinion on what whiskey is, and people have opinions on this. People have opinions about everything. It's kind of like assholes. Everyone's got one.
Right.
And so it's just, it's been a wild years as, a few has matured as a company, and we've matured as distillers. The industry has matured up and around us, and retailers and bars and customers and everybody's really, we're seeing an awful lot of growth in the business, not just our business, but people really kind of getting, with what craft whiskey is and where it fits in the marketplace. Because, I always talk about, craft beer. I love craft beer. I'm sure most people listening probably have they probably like craft beer too. But craft whiskey is not like craft beer at all. In craft beer, the craft beer drinker can sit there and look at you and say, oh, well, what are you going to do? Drink Budweiser? And you might, if you're a craft beer drinker, like, oh, God, no, I would never drink Budweiser.
Right.
In bourbon, what am I going to do? Say, what are you going to do? Drink Wild Turkey? Because fuck yeah, you're going to drink Wild Turkey. That stuff's awesome.
Right.
It's like, it's a fundamentally different business because my competitors who are big make really good stuff. And that's a fundamental difference.
Right. I was actually thinking about this a little earlier too. So, I said before I'm in the Indianapolis area. So with everything that's happened in the past, year, I was kind of, year and a half, I guess, I was thinking about, so when people come visit me in Indianapolis, we go to, there's like out here, we have Hotel Tango. We have West Fork. Yeah. And so, West Fork whiskeys out here. Yep. So, and then every time, people say, man, next time I come out here, I want to go right back to that same, and it's like, to me, they may not know, and it's probably, I would imagine it's the same for any craft. I mean, so they may not know that name, but once we go there and it's just like maybe the feel of the place, and then they get to know it and get to know that brand. Like there was actually one, I won't say any names, but there was one in the Indy area that I just didn't care for. I tried a lot of their whiskeys and it just wasn't for me. But there was a line, backed up of people that had ordered a cocktail, and I mean, they were buying bottles left and right, which, good for them. But I saw how much that the experience with that distillery, in person, just from a consumer point of view, it seems to really matter when it comes to craft. Is that what you all see? And have you noticed any difference with all the, reopenings or things like that? Or is it pretty much the same?
Customer experience is key, and all of it, again, all of it matters. Certainly kind of coming up, the product matters, that you have to have that good flavor. And, just like you say, there are people, there's a distillery you did personally, which sucks. But I mean, honestly, to my mind, that's kind of the point. there should be distilleries you don't like. There are
Sure.
people out there, and it shocks me to this day, but there are people that don't like few.
Mm.
But that's the point.
Mm.
Craft,
Right. Sure.
craft exists because somebody needs to love it. And
Mm-hmm.
if nobody hates it, nobody can love it, because that just means it's like, oh, yeah, okay, it's fine.
Right.
People are always afraid like my whiskey, and I think that's weird, because it's okay. I don't care if you like my whiskey or not. I like my whiskey. I don't need everybody
Right.
to like it. I just need a few. And I'd way rather hear somebody say, you know what, man, I don't like your whiskey. I'd rather hear that than, I had your whiskey, it was all right.
Right. Right.
My whiskey being okay is the
Right.
worst possible comment you can make to me.
Right.
I don't care if you don't like my whiskey.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's so many, lately. So since the last time we talked on Instagram, my profile's grown, which still blows my mind, because it's like I just post a picture of a bottle of whatever I'm drinking that day or something, whatever. But it's what I've learned is that people kind of hang on to, and all social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, there's plenty of people out there talking about whiskey, and it's like they hang on to those opinions. And I always try to say, I mean, I don't like the same. I mean, you and I may not like the same food. We may not like this. It's just a preference thing. And there's actually one of my favorite examples is Jim Beam makes Old Tub, and on Instagram I talked about how I just don't see what everybody else sees in that bourbon, but Instagram was like, well, send me the bottle then, whatever. And it's like, yeah, take it. I mean, but that's the point. Cause like, I guess just from my perspective, if I'm talking to a viewer or follower, that if I do say, hey, I really enjoy a few, this American whiskey is my favorite, then to me, it like means something, because I'm not just saying every single thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but
there's whiskeys I like that you probably don't. There's whiskeys you like that
sure.
I probably don't. And that's okay. And, rather than say, oh, well, brand X sucks. Well,
right.
Yes, there are brands that suck. You can't pretend
Right.
that there aren't brands that suck, but it's a pretty small minority in this business.
Right.
And I'd really rather sit there and have a drink of the whiskey that I like, and, share some time with some friends drinking the whiskey that they like. And we can talk
absolutely.
about, hey, man, I really like the, like few, to me, few is notable for cinnamon and tart cherry flavors. So if you like cinnamon and tart cherry, you might like few. If you hate cinnamon and you hate tart cherry, frankly, you're probably not going to like my whiskey.
Right.
So then maybe you should be drinking something that's have cinnamon and tart cherry flavor.
Right. Right.
We'll sit and talk about why I like it and why I like this and why you don't, and why you like that and I don't, and we'll have a good time. We'll crack some jokes. And that's, to me, that's what whiskey is about. Is that time with your friends and family. And whether you're sitting around a fire in the fall in Indianapolis talking about how the Hoosiers, won that great game, or you're, hanging out in front of YouTube watching some, watching a numbnut talk about how he makes whiskey while he's sitting in front of a bunch of girls, or, whatever it is that you're doing to share that time and that experience and those bad jokes with your friends. That's the magic of whiskey. It's not that you get drunk, because I just want to get drunk on whiskey. Please don't drink mine. Drink else's. I'd rather you share some times with your family and friends with my whiskey than end up passed out in the alley. That's not what we're about.
Yeah, and that's actually why I started this show. So for me, that was one of my favorite things. I mean, I've gotten to the point now where, my basement has been kind of growing, and sometimes my wife will go down there and say, "Oh, there's more bottles here than there were before." But it's one of those things that when people come over, I just love to go down with them and just say, like, grab whatever you want to try, or if you want a recommendation for something of where to start, this and this, try this and this. And it's actually been really neat, because sometimes, because we did the IG live, some people say, hey, where's the few? I saw the the cold cuts on there, or the Immortal Rye. So that's pretty neat to see that transition. But to me, it's always been about when people come over, and I always hear the same thing too. It's like, I think, maybe people, I don't know if they feel bad, but it's like, what's your bottom shelf stuff? Don't give me anything fancy. But to me, it's like open up whatever bottles you got, and just enjoy it with the people around you. And because I wasn't able to do that for quite a while, that's why I kind of decided to come up with this show. And whether it's people in the comments or people that may come on the show, that's one of the things. It's like, just open some and enjoy it. And hopefully somebody's poured, a little something of their favorite, and watching us talk about whiskey. So
Yeah,
I definitely agree with you. That's what it's all about. Yeah,
it's
absolutely. So there's a comment here. Somebody was asking where the distillery is located, because they are planning a trip.
Oh, so we are in the distillery is in Evanston, Illinois. It's just immediately outside the city of Chicago. Like if you're from Indianapolis, it's way closer than going to. We're about a mile from the city limits. So super easy. We are on we're on the L train. We're on the Metra. We're probably around 200 yards from both. Might be a little bit closer than 200 yards, but yeah, you can get to us on the train. You can get to us via car. You can get to us via bike. Hell, you can just walk up here too. But we're in Evanston, Illinois. It's super easy to get to, right outside Chicago. And the thing about being in Evanston is that we're the birthplace of the entire Prohibition movement. The city itself was actually founded in order to outlaw alcohol. And making a long, short TLDR, I'm the guy that killed Prohibition dead where it was born. We're the first alcohol ever made here.
Yeah, and for anybody that maybe wants more on that, check out the IG live that we did on @the Bourbon Guy. So we talked a little bit earlier. You were talking about just craft and how craft really wasn't a thing when you started. I mean, has some of the bigger distilleries been able to work with you all, or I mean, what's it like trying to compete against, like you said, some of these major ones? That have you seen that kind of embraced, or is it kind of, was it tough in the beginning, or maybe now it's a little easier?
No, this guys are, they watching. So even 10 years ago, quote, was well less than 1% of spirit sales in the country. We were being watched. I actually saw the report that Pernod did on us. We were maybe 18 months into business. Pernod had like a 100-page research report on us, talking about our accounts, all of this stuff. And 18 months in, Pernod knew more about me than I knew about myself. And so that was pretty eye-opening that the various companies like their market share. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of places are really realizing that we don't actually compete with the large distillers. We really don't. I don't see Beam or Turkey or Brown-Forman or Four Roses. I really don't see them as competitors, and I don't think they should see me as a competitor either. What we really do is bring people into whiskey. I bring people from beer into whiskey, and I bring people from wine into whiskey. I firmly believe that for every bottle of few I sell probably 2 or 3 bottles of large brand distillery. We bring people to whiskey, and that is a good thing.
Yeah.
And if you look at the growth in spirits, like basically dollar for dollar growth in spirits is craft, and dollar for dollar the loss of market share in both beer and wine to spirits tracks almost identically the increase in share of craft spirits. So we bring people into the world of spirits, and so I think large distilleries that see us as competition are not seeing it clearly. And you can also see that with a lot of the large guys buying out the small guys too.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so there's plenty of small guys that have had some nice little paydays, or if not a payday, a nice little transaction that's really helped them to grow, including us. Making whiskey and growing a whiskey company is extremely expensive because of the cash flow. Uh, you know, I've already paid all the money to make all that whiskey, but that's sitting here for have revenue off of it. That's really expensive, and as you're
Right.
trying to grow, it's really difficult without access to capital.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I was just talking to somebody the other day about, craft distillers and I talked about, okay, well, if you're starting a whiskey company, I mean, yes, you make it, but you now have to let it age. And it was almost like a light bulb went off, like, oh yeah. And I think that's something maybe more people don't really think about.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'm paying rent on this space. I bought all the barrels. I bought all the grain. I bought the yeast. I paid for the salaries. I paid for health insurance. We pay today, and I mean, I just give you a quick little. You can see that wall of barrel, but it doesn't really
yeah.
show you that.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
That's still awesome to see though. It's so
So I
cool.
mean, we can see all this. This is expensive. This is real money that we have to invest in order to put that whiskey down for time. And again, like these are all full
Yeah.
of whiskey.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's probably about 20,000 square foot of barrels sitting right here. Paying rent
Yeah.
on. We paid for the barrel. Everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of talk about that, but what other, I would imagine that's a challenge, right? Over the past 10 years I mean, what's been the biggest challenge for you guys in the past 10 years?
Oh, I mean, I think there's so many challenges trying to figure out what the biggest one is. It's really tough.
Yeah.
You get all the challenges of normal businesses, ranging from HR to contract, all legal, all the regulations, but you also have to have leases, sick, and people take vacations, and this happens and that happens. There's no difference here. The
Mm-hmm.
challenge of that cash flow taking, can be very difficult, especially if you're trying to grow. If you stay flat, then you're probably okay. But we're not exactly staying flat. We're trying to grow.
Right. Yeah. And that's something it makes me think about. So my father-in-law used to own his own construction company. And one of the things, like, we were trying to get some work done to the house, and there was a guy that we worked with who, I mean, he did great work, but it was like the actual business of it. I mean, like, he just couldn't keep it up. And when I was talking to my father-in-law about it, he was basically saying that, you may have that skill or that may be your craft, and you think, I'll get into the business of it, but then when you actually start running the business of it, it kind of is not what you really wanted. So I never really made that connection with whiskey until just now. I would imagine that there might be some that just like distilling whiskey, making whiskey, but then realize it's a business. It's a
It
company
is
to
a
run.
business, and
Yeah.
like I'm really lucky. I mean, I get to create art every day. I get to do something I love every day, which is make whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all true. Nothing interferes with the fact that I love what I do. Whether it's just like you're talking about your buddy who's a contractor. I mean, you can have guys that are great contractors, you have guys that are great roofers, but at
Right.
the end of the day, when you're roofing for money, um, it is actually a business. This is how
Right.
this is how my entire staff pays their rent. This is how my kids
Sure.
eat.
Right.
And I always laugh when I see whiskey people talk about how this whiskey should cost that much or this whiskey costs this. They complain that whiskey costs
Right.
like 40, $50 a bottle. And I'm
Right.
always just like, I always kind of laugh. Like, if you knew what it takes to get this whiskey to you,
Right.
you would laugh at paying $50 a bottle because it's a steal.
Right.
Because it is. It's a big deal. Whiskey is so inexpensive.
Right.
And it shouldn't cost more than this amount. Like, well, Yes, it actually should cost a lot more than that.
Right.
So
Right.
thankful it doesn't.
Yeah, we have a comment here. Love it when distillers work with craft brewers and collaborate. Does few give any of their barrels to local breweries for a stout collaboration? Love some
So
bourbon
we
barrel
give
ales.
barrels to breweries. We sell them to breweries. Yes.
Back to that
Barrels are
business part, right? Right.
going back to that business part. So the short answer is yes. We've worked with breweries all over the country. But if I can take a half a second spin on that as well, just launched this very week a program that really builds on that brewery whiskey collaboration. And we're brewery Moby Dick right outside of Providence, Rhode Island, in Mass. What we're doing is a program that we're kind of calling Few in a Brew. And we gave that brewery some of the yeast we make our bourbon with, and they made a beer
That's
from
awesome.
it. And so you can go into Moby Dick Brewing. I think it may even be launching today. It might be launching tomorrow, but it's like launching like right now. And you could get.
So they heard it here first, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you heard first. Like,
Right.
I think Moby Dick posted about it yesterday.
Gotcha.
But you can go get a beer made from the same yeast as whiskey. And I've never heard of anything like that before. And I think that's really freaking cool because, well, A, we use beer yeast to make our bourbon, so it just makes sense from a beer yeast. And B, how cool is that? Like,
Yeah.
You want to talk about the influence of yeast? Here's a whiskey and a beer. The yeast is the commonality. You know, what flavors do you pick up that are common to both the whiskey and the beer? And you want to getting your palate trained. You want to start getting that working. How about that?
Right.
How cool is
that? Yeah, that's really unique because that's one thing and so I could see the comments here going through. A lot of it's asking about the fact that you all have been so innovative in the past and what types of things do you have coming up. So that answers that question. But I just think it's so, whether it's some of the other, the Immortal Rye and all the other products that you have, it's like, to me, that's so cool, especially as a whiskey, nerd. It's like, because it's one thing, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but when it's one thing when you see one company try something, whether it's finishing or, whatever it may be, and then it's everywhere. And then, this pops up and then it's everywhere, right?
If you ever want to know what the spirit business is going to do in 2 years, look at what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Because everything we do gets copied.
Right.
Pretty much, we launched our breakfast gin probably 8 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, using tea as one of the primary botanicals. 2 years later, everybody's launching this gin with that tea or this gin with another tea. Everybody's doing that. We launched a whiskey cut down to bottle proof with cold brew coffee, and 6 months later, there's JMO doing the exact same thing.
Right.
They're adding sugar.
Right.
If you don't know what's going to happen in the future, watch me today.
Yeah.
It's that dedication to innovation and creativity that is the hallmark of what we do. And I always bring it back to my days in my 20s when I was a pro guitar player and improvising and not being afraid to fail and bringing that same no fear of failure to making whiskey. We're not afraid to fail. We're not going to sell stuff that fails, mind you. There's plenty of whiskey that we make that we're like, that was a swing and a miss.
Right.
But when it hits, you end up with really exciting stuff like the Cold Type and the Immortal. You end up with really cool stuff. Which was a whiskey that we really liked, but we didn't think was right for us, and so we figured out a way to work with this whiskey to make it cool.
Right.
And I think it worked.
Yeah.
That's that creativity.
Right. And I study business in general, and that's what my background is outside of bourbon. But one of the things that I've noticed about any company is that when you have that innovator and then the companies that are chasing them, by the time you're mimicking them, that the reason that that company is innovative, I mean, they're already coming up with something new. So, what you just mentioned with the Moby Dick brewing, that's something I've never heard of before. So it's like by the time others have caught on to what you've already done, it's like View's already moved
Yeah,
on to the next
we'll
thing.
be on the next one, and that's okay.
Right.
Try and catch up. You can't catch up to me. So I mean, we're doing with
Right.
Moby Dick. We got another brewery we're working with in the Phoenix area. We're trying to work some breweries right here in Evanston thing because it's cool and it's interesting and it's neat.
Right.
And it's fun for us too. Like we get to work with brewers, and brewing and distilling are different. So we get to play around and decide to like the brewers get excited.
Well, that's why I love that you call it art.
It's liquid art in a bottle. Like
I love that. Right.
Because that's what it is. And again, hey, there's art I like, there's art you like. And quite frankly, the art you like is probably very different than the art I like. And that's a beautiful thing. I don't want to like the same art you like. We should like different art. We should like different things, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia is called the Grateful Dead Black Licorice because the people that most people don't like it, but the people that like it really like it. And I'm a raging Deadhead, so.
Well, you talked a little bit about the guitar, so I saw just a little bit ago that. So you got a guitar made out of a barrel, right?
Yeah,
is that right?
A barrel I turned into a guitar, and right now we're having a guitar amp made out of a barrel too. So I'll be a fully whiskey barreled out musician within a couple of months, playing a whiskey barrel guitar through a whiskey barrel amp through hand whiskey.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we talked about the fact that you're running a business that's presented its own challenges, but I'm sure there's a lot of great things that you took out of the past 10 years too. So what's kind of one of the highlights of what you've been able to accomplish, or what you've gotten out of the 10 years?
Oh, and I think there's all sorts of stuff ranging from professional to personal. And I always like to do the personal too. Like I think the number one thing I've gotten out of the last 10 years is, quite frankly, the friends and the people. The whiskey business is full of awesome people because we all share this. It's free, and the whiskey business, it's insane. There's no reason anybody should be in this, and the only reason that any of us are doing this is because we have a sickness, because it's punishing. And so, working in business and sharing the knowledge and sharing the time and sharing the drinks with amazing people all over the world is amazing. So first I think the people. Second is there you go. Walking into bars all over the world and seeing stuff you made sitting there is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
2 years ago, I was on vacation in Florence, Italy, with my family, and we just popped into a random restaurant to have dinner, and there was Few on the bar.
That's awesome.
I
could imagine that. That would be really
cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been in bars in Japan, Hong Kong, Sweden, UK, Spain, Italy, Germany, all over the country. And there's stuff that I made. I think that's really cool, seeing how small the world can be, and seeing our bottles on very few in the backdrop of a set for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Holy shit, the bottle of Few when it's sunny.
Right.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
It's a tough business for all it is, but it is fun.
I feel like in the musician in you, this is just for me being somebody that likes music, but I would imagine, is that kind of like hearing your song on the radio, or is that kind of what that's like for you when you go somewhere and see your bottle just sitting there?
I'll never forget the first time I heard my song on the radio.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't go away. Like you're driving the car and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Right. Yeah, like that's actually me, and they're playing it.
Wait,
Yeah, that's
what
awesome.
the hell? I'm on WXOT. Wait, what the?
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
you don't forget that, and you don't forget seeing your stuff here. You don't see you just don't forget it because it's that creative process, and you go through this, and you do this. You do the creative stuff for you. Like we don't make whiskeys for the market. We make whiskeys because we think it's fun. And
Right.
some of them end up being on the market, and some of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we've got a pretty substantial amount of whiskey trying to figure out what to do with because we don't like it. And so it's not that it's not even necessarily bad whiskey. It's just
right.
This isn't us. It's
so
not who we are.
so do you then do you hold on to it until you can come up with some type of, whether it's an innovation or just an idea what to do with that, or what would you just kind of okay. Yeah. So
yeah, that is the one good thing about whiskey is it's old. It's not like it gets worse. Usually.
Right.
Right. We have that stuff that's gone bad. It's too old. Or it gets too oaky, or that does happen.
Sure.
See, big number on the age statement.
Right.
Bourbon got that old, and it's not.
Right.
But yeah.
So okay, you obviously did the 10 years, and obviously that's a huge. Because I'm trying to think, because especially when you started being the only craft, you're the first craft to get to 10, right? Am I right on that?
No, I mean, but certainly not. I mean, they're definitely crafts older than us, ranging from my friends.
But it was just a newer concept when you started.
Yeah, there are people that are older than 10. I'm not going to say we're the oldest because, quite frankly, we're not the oldest.
Okay.
But we are rather old for the business of craft. And
right.
When we started, there were, again, like I said, maybe 30 guys around the country making whiskey from grain to glass, ranging from Leopold to St. George was making a very small amount of whiskey at that time. Vol was in business before us. Corsair, Chip Tate with Balcones down in Texas. Chip was making whiskey before we were. I did not.
I forgot about Balcones.
Still, by no means.
Right. Yeah.
But
within there,
not a whole. There weren't a whole lot. No competition. It's just friends.
Right. Sure. So I mean, obviously, to me, it seems like the craft distilling, business has shifted a little bit in the past 10 years. But have you seen the consumer? I would imagine yes. But how has the consumer changed in the past 10 years?
The consumer is. The consumer remains a big whiskey fan first and foremost. The people who are drinking, they're whiskey fans first and foremost. So over the last 10 years, I've seen whiskey fans kind of come around to, oh, well, the only whiskey I'll drink is from Kentucky. Or even like, you got this guy, I'll only drink whiskey from Kentucky. If it's not from Scotland, it's shite. If it's not Irish, it's shite. So,
right.
10 years ago, I think that there was a whole bunch of, quite frankly, bullshit. People talking crap about bourbon or talking crap about Scotch or talking crap about Irish. They suck. They suck.
Right.
And get into any of that. And I think that some of those walls have come down. And while there are definitely still whiskey drinkers that, really only drink Scotch or only drink bourbon, I'm not sensing so much of the you guys suck 10 years in. I've seen people move on from craft whiskey sucks to sourced whiskey sucks to sourced whiskey is the only whiskey to I would never buy anything that's not made by him. Yeah, I'll never drink anything by MGP to I'll only drink stuff from MGP. The people kind of flip back and forth. 5 years ago, sourcing whiskey was a sin. Now it's a virtue.
Right.
And
I would think I would imagine that's hard in the whiskey business, just because of the years that in between that it takes to, with your products, right? But
yeah, and then then you hear that your stuff is expensive at 40. It's $45 on the shelf. Oh,
right.
Like really? You're $90 on a button-down shirt, and you're gonna tell me my whiskey's too expensive?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's Yeah, and I think too, there's a lot. What I've noticed is because there's a local liquor store that I talk with often, and um, when I go in there, I don't know. I just go and I look at the aisle, and I don't know. I just enjoy looking to see what's out there and what's like we talked about some of those innovations and what's out there, and there's always customers that come in that they're looking for something in particular or whatever, and it's different because it's not like I work there, but I just love having that conversation of there's so much more out there that's and you may like it, you may not, but there's so much more out there
Yep.
that's sitting right in front of you that and I've paid a good amount of money for some bottles that I opened and didn't care for, and then there's others that I've spent way less and love. So with whiskey, to me, because I hear that often too, especially people just getting into it. And I know we have some viewers this evening that are, just getting into whiskey too, but price doesn't always, just because it's not $100 bottle or something like that doesn't mean it's not good. So
if you're just getting into whiskey, quite frankly, welcome. Don't be turned off by, don't get turned off, get excited. We want you here. Welcome to whiskey. Have some fun. Try some different things. Don't let anybody tell you how you should drink your whiskey. Don't let anybody tell you which brand you should like. Don't let anybody tell you that brand X is shit. Don't let anybody tell you that whiskey not from here is shit. Try whiskey. Drink it. Enjoy it. Try it a couple of different ways. See which way you like it. Maybe you like drinking it neat. Maybe you like drinking it on the rocks. Maybe you like Coke. Maybe you like it in cocktails. There's simply no wrong answer other than drinking whiskey the way that you don't like. I personally don't like whiskey and Coke. I don't like the texture of spirit and carbonation. I don't drink whiskey Coke. If you like whiskey Coke, go drink Few and Coke. Please, drink Few and Coke.
Right.
Just because I get that way don't matter.
Right. And I think one of the other things too with people that are just kind of getting into whiskey that I'll just kind of piggyback off that is it's okay for that to change. So if maybe you start drinking whiskey and Coke or whiskey and Sprite or something like that, and then it's like, I kind of like it just on the rocks, or I kind of like it with a little bit of water, or I kind of like it neat. I mean, and it's funny too, because with just, kind of the stuff that I deal with, there's people that, it's like, I don't sit around and drink 130 proof, when it's 100 something degrees outside, neat, it's like, it's a cocktail. I put it in a cocktail or something, it's like, but there's definitely more than one way to drink it, but that can change too over time as you,
or even overnight. You like drinking it a bunch of different ways. I'll personally,
and there's
I'll have it neat. I'll have it on rocks on the same evening, yet I still live.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and there's times too, for me at least, where it's like there's some whiskeys that I've tried with. I'll add a few drops of water, and I feel like it opens that up. And then there's others that I try with a few drops of water, and I feel like it mellows it down. So I have enjoyed just experimenting with different whiskeys and just see how they react and see, this one I feel, for my palate is better than if I do this with it than that. So,
yep. Well, I mean, scientifically, whiskey is actually improved with a drop of water. And you could talk about the scientific reasons why. But in particular, any whiskey over 92.6 proof, don't worry about that number. Anything at a relatively, it's scientifically going to be improved by a drop of water. So don't be afraid to put a little bit of water on the rocks. Drink your whiskey the way you like it and learn how you like it. Try it a couple of different ways. And different whiskeys, maybe you like different ways too. Maybe you like Few on the rocks, but you like Old Tub in a Manhattan. I don't know. That's okay.
Right. Yeah. There's a question here that came up. Quick question. Is there a favorite whiskey or bourbon for Paul? Very curious.
Absolutely. My favorite whiskey is the one in front of me.
There you go. That's a great answer. Yeah. That's and then they're commenting on the whiskey and Sprite for life, no judgment zone. No, it is no judgment.
Hey, if you like Sprite, please drink whiskey and Sprite. I don't like it because I don't like the texture. It's okay.
Right. How do you guys feel about Manhattans?
I love Manhattans. I am a little bit of a vermouth asshole because you have to have a good vermouth for a good Manhattan. You can use almost any whiskey to make it great. Of course, he makes it best, but I'm a little bit of a dick about my vermouth, and so that's what I like. I like Carpano Antica, and if you know Carpano, you know it ain't cheap. But I love Manhattans.
Yeah.
My number cocktail.
So of course I got to ask what number 1 is.
Oh, Boulevardier. I love the little extra bitter. If you don't know, so Manhattan, or my recipe for Manhattan is about 3 parts whiskey to 1 part vermouth. The recipe for a Boulevardier is going to be 1 part whiskey. Sweet vermouth, not just vermouth. So Boulevardier is going to be 1 part whiskey, 1 part sweet vermouth, and 1 part bitter Italian. Generally, it's going to be Campari, but I'm a big fan of Aperol as well as a product called, if you can, I think Cappelletti is just mega. And if you're lucky enough to be able to find Leopold's Aperitivo or St. George's Aperitivo, A, you're lucky, and B, buy it and buy everything you can because that stuff is killer.
Yeah, actually, so the first, so it's a while ago now, but the very first Manhattan I ever had, I thought was amazing. And I don't even, I just, the funny thing is I don't remember where I was even at. I just remember that the drink was amazing, like my memory of a Manhattan. And then I went to another place and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I got the Manhattan. And this is, I had just kind of gotten into cocktails and things like that. And I ordered one, and then I actually sent the drink back, and I said, "That's not the same drink," because it tasted so different from the one I had prior. So, um, so I would say Manhattan old fashioned. I mean, pretty much any of those cocktails, if they're, which kind of sounds like a dumb comment, but if it's done right with quality products, and by somebody who is good at that craft, then I enjoy them.
Yeah, there are.
And I used to think there's not a wrong way, but there absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manhattans can be difficult. A friend of mine's a real snob about his Manhattans. He'll actually go behind bars and make the Manhattan for himself if he doesn't trust the bartender. Carpano Antica is the vermouth. TCM Solo. Sorry, I can't read that. My glasses.
TC Mr. Solo Dolo. The
Solo
vermouth.
Dolo, yeah.
Yep.
Carpano Antica. It's expensive. So if you go looking for it, grab your seatbelt.
So 10 years in. So what's, and we're gonna probably talk about this in the future too, but what's next for Few? Where does Few go from here?
I mean, 10 years in, we're continuing to grow. We are continuing to innovate. I hope to never stop innovating. That's the stuff I like doing. That's the fun. This business is hard enough. You got to be able to find your fun somewhere. And,
right.
It's the innovation that really gets me excited. We just launched our 10th anniversary limited availability 10th anniversary whiskey. It's a 4-grain bourbon. It doesn't taste like anything we've ever made before. We've never made a 4-grain whiskey before. We have no more 4-grain whiskey in barrel. So when this is gone, it's gone forever. You can primarily being sold in Illinois. So if you're not in Illinois, your only way would be to pull the byfewspirits.com website and hope that when it launches on that website, that you get access to it, because when it's gone, it's gone. And I don't know when it's going to get to that website because of the 3-tier system.
Sure.
I don't actually control it. We shipped it a lot.
I might have to make
ago.
I might have to take the trip over to Illinois sometime soon, man.
Yeah, because you can always check out byfewspirits.com. It's our DTC website. Even if it's not really DTC, it's our DC website.
Okay.
So with that, we're going to be releasing another whiskey
and hold
in
on,
about
sorry,
a month.
Sorry to interrupt you. The 4 grain, so the 4th being wheat, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So corn is obviously
So
number one, wheat and rye plus malted barley.
Yep. Okay.
In about a month, we're releasing a whiskey that we're super excited about. We think it's going to help get people back into remembering about a few spirits, because we're going to be releasing our first bottled and bond. All of our whiskey is certainly could be released as bottled and bond, but we've never sold anything at 100 proof before. So we're very excited about having a bottled and bond whiskey on the market. And then the other fun one we're excited about coming out next spring is going to be our next rock band collaboration. If you've been watching a few over the last couple of years, you know we've worked with bands like Sarah Shook and the Disarmers. You know we've worked with Alice in Chains. You know we've worked with the Flaming Lips. And we're going to be working, and we've been working now for almost 2 years at this point, with a group called the Rebel Motorcycle Club. And we're real excited about that product coming out next spring. Their debut album was released 21 years ago next spring. So this coming spring, we're going to be releasing a whiskey along with them for the album's 21st birthday. Something we're pretty excited about.
That's another innovation. I don't know that I've seen that done before, but
again, watch what I'm doing and come back in 2 years and everybody else is going to be doing it.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. And so, so I don't know. I'm just excited that you were, willing to come back on, and obviously a new platform for me. So I appreciate you kind of sticking with me. But
hopefully I can come back on in about a month and talk about the bottled to bond too.
Yeah. So again, because there's some people that are just getting into whiskey. Maybe the short version of what bottled and bond. What does that mean, and how is that?
Bottled and bond means that it's whiskey that has been aged for at least 4 years. It has to be bottled at exactly 100 proof. It has to be distilled at one distillery. That distillery has to be listed on the label, which of course we're few, so it always is anyways. It has to be under one distiller, and it has to be distilled one season. Season is defined as 2 seasons a year, January 1 to June 30 or 31. How many days does June have?
30.
And then July 1 through December 31st.
Right. Yep.
So,
and that was, so for those watching, or that was actually passed because of some of the shady things going on in whiskey at the time. So it pretty much guarantees, and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but it pretty much guarantees that product to the consumer, that you can trust what's in this bottle has been vetted, I guess, to be. I don't want to say.
I disagree. There
was just.
I bristle a bit with to get to the quality, because it's actually not. There's plenty of shady bottled and bond stuff out there.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
But it does mean that the product has to have these characteristics. Which,
and I guess I'm thinking of some of those stories of the past of the quality in that sense years ago. But nowadays, it's for a craft distillery such as yourself, how important is it to have a bottled and bond product?
We've never had one before, so you'll talk to me in a couple of years. I think it's, I think it's a big thing, because it shows that craft distilleries are now putting out whiskey that's at least 4 years old. Yeah, we do put out whiskey that's at least 4 years old, but I don't like age statements, so we don't use them.
Right. Okay.
I think it's exciting, and I think it's, certainly over the last, whatever you want to say, the last 18 months, bottled and bond has become very much, I think, a catchphrase in a lot of the whiskey aficionado community. That, bottled and bond, bottled and bond, bottled and bond.
Right.
10 years ago, nobody was talking about bottled and bond. Over the last 18 months, people are talking about it. And so, while I don't like age statements, when everybody in the whiskey world's talking bottled and bond, like, all right, here you go. You want bottled and bond? Here you go.
Sure. Here's a bottle and bond. Yeah, that'll be sometime later on this year, right? I think it's when it actually is released. We already
shipped it all out. It's just a question when it hits distribution.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So the challenges of the 3-tier system are like, we can ship it out, and when it gets to you,
Yeah, who knows? So yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on at that point and kind of talk us through the bottled and bond um, a little bit more. So um, I don't see any other comments, man. So unless there's something, where can everybody find you or Few Spirits
You can find
on
us on your
social media?
social medias at Few Spirits. Don't miss our 10th anniversary party a week Friday, October 1st at the Distillery at 918 Chicago Avenue in Evanston, Illinois. You can buy our stuff all over the country. So ask at your favorite retailer for Few Spirits, and if not, buyfewspirits.com. Feel free to use the discount code FEWTOK, T-O-K, as in TikTok. I think it gets you $5 off. And check us out online.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming by, man, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Ty. Sounds good.
All right, see you next time. All right, bye.